Songs and Sit-Downs, featuring OWEN DARA. And now, OWEN DARA.
Good evening and welcome to Songs and Sit-Downs. As I say every week, that song, that intro always makes me smile. And thank you so much for joining us on this, would you believe, our 9th show of the series. 9th already. As always, we're very happy to have you with us, especially during this crazy time when many of us are still stuck at home. You know, when I was a kid, my mother told me I'd never go anywhere. Well, I have to finally admit, she was right. The positive thing about all of this is that I've learned that my car can go from 0 to 0 in just 3.5 months. Quite a discovery. By the way, on that topic, I am open to selling my car now that I've told you a little bit about its positive side. And something else I can tell you that's positive side is it's extremely economical. It has survived on the same tank of fuel since way back in March. Yep, never put gas or petrol, depending what part of the world you're from, gas or petrol in it. And it's been 3.5 months. Pretty amazing. But I can't guarantee that if you buy it and actually drive it, that you're going to have the same result that I'd. Results may vary. There's my disclaimer right there. But if you choose to go somewhere in my car, you'll be doing better than me. I was going to go to the pub this week because they opened the pubs and it was like, yay, they opened. Then they closed them again yesterday. Well, that's life. You know, with all the stuff going on here, even the murder hornets have just like turned around and gone somewhere else. So speaking of going somewhere else, we're going to travel all the way right now to Van Nuys, California, and one of my favorite parts of the show actually is checking in with Dolly and JJ over there at Divine Rebel Music headquarters, where they're always working hard and doing their thing behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And and it's just JJ and there's Dolly. It's both of you. And you always have the most interesting backdrops. And JJ has the most interesting hair, I should say.
He was trying to set it up properly. You want to go for it again? Oh, well, we tried. That's his mad scientist hair.
Yeah, well, it looks good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing all right.
Yeah.
Good.
It's feeling better.
Good. I'm happy to hear it.
Yeah.
Well, good. It's been great having this chat.
Yeah.
So I guess at this point, we remind people that they can subscribe to our YouTube channels.
Yes, we do. I will post them in the comments, everyone.
Right.
As you know, this is our labor of love, our passion project. And, you know, we have YouTube channels where we also have the show streaming. And what our goal is to get to 1,000 subscribers, us, Divine Rebel Music, and also OWEN DARA. He has his own channel, so I'll post both of them. So if you have not subscribed, if you could kindly please subscribe so that we could get to 1,000. We have a long way to go, but every single subscription counts. So anyway, that will all help us monetize on the show, and then we won't be begging for money.
Right, so we won't be asking for tips when we can monetize,
right.
And then they'll show ads, and YouTube will give us money. But in the meantime, we're going to have to mention the tip jar, as we do every week. We are so happy to have you all with us, tuning in. That is the most important thing. But if you want to throw something in the tip jar, it's great.
What happened to JJ?
Greatly appreciated. Yes, we've replaced JJ with the tip jar. Juxtaposition there. I love it. And we do share tips with the musical artists. So it's shared with the people who put on the show and the musical artists. So that's great. And so do you guys want to put up the graphic for the upcoming shows like we do every week? The live shows? The live shows happening around Los Angeles?
Yeah. I'm still looking for that. I don't think we have one.
Oh, no. I have it right here. There it is. That's what's going on, my friends.
That's right.
Absolutely no shows. And this is the 9th time we've done this joke. And we're,
I always find it funny. It's just
our special musical guest tonight, Michael McNevin, will appreciate that.
woohoo!
He'll appreciate that over and over. And we do have some great shows. Well, thank you guys. It's good to see you.
All right.
And we'll chat to you again soon. Thank you for everything
Yes.
you do for the music community.
Here's to a great show.
Yep.
Here's to it, my friends.
Thanks for joining
Thank
us,
you.
everybody. All right.
Okay.
Thank you. And yes, we do have a great show. Tonight is no exception. Some fantastic guests. I mentioned Michael before, but in a little while, we'll be going all the way to London, England, in our first ever special guest pre-recorded interview. Now, we had to pre-record it because it's 3 o'clock in the morning, roughly, over there. It's 3:05, I suppose. I think they're 8 hours ahead right now. And so, we thought it might be better for us. We might get a better result if we didn't have to get our esteemed interviewee out of bed in the middle of the night. So just a few days ago, I spoke with David Nathan. He's our first guest, the first guest of the evening, whose love of soul music has carried him on a very exciting journey through his long career as a music producer, an author, a singer, and a music journalist. And I very much enjoyed listening to his colorful stories, and I'm sure you will too. And then after that, after David's interview, we're going to go all the way up there to Niles, California, and we're going to be talking to Michael McNevin. Michael's also going to be performing for us some of his original songs, and if you've ever heard Michael play live, and I hope you have, or if you've listened to any of his many, many recordings, you'll know that something very special is in store for us later in the show. And if by chance tonight happens to be the moment you discover Michael McNevin for the very first time, then you're going to be very glad you tuned in, because what a fantastic singer-songwriter. He's got a great sense of humor, so I can promise you that's really going to be a lot of fun. But before that, we're going to go to one of our favorite weekly segments, which is written and presented by one of our favorite people who never lets us down with her positive spin in life, and I'm sure this will be no exception. This is On the Upside with Jessica Lancaster.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I hope you're having a fabulous Monday. All right, let's get started. There is a senior home in Brazil that has found a way for its residents to hug and still follow the social distancing. Rubio Santos, one of the administrators, said, "We noticed that our senior residents were feeling sad. We thought they would be much happier if we found a way for them to hug their relatives. So they put their heads together and they created the Hug Tunnel." It's made of thick plastic sheeting. The Hug Tunnel has armholes for visitors and residents to wrap their arms around the person standing on the other side. The holes are at 3 different levels to accommodate children and those in wheelchairs. What a wonderful, creative way to keep the love alive. Speaking of love for your fellow man, Desmond Hemmons, 19, and Christian Jackson, 20, juniors at Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles, partnered with 40 different student groups at LMU to raise $50,000 for a variety of organizations supporting Black Lives Matter. Hemmons and Jackson are co-presidents of an on-campus group, Brothers of Consciousness, or BOC, a Black male leadership organization whose mission is to promote the values of leadership and social justice within the Black community and LMU community. After seeing Instagram flooded with posts supporting the movement, they decided to use the platform to make an impact. And they did. Congrats, you guys. Let's all change the world together, shall we? Now, I think I found the cheekiest competition ever. Museums all over the globe are competing to find who has the best bum as part of a weekly online battle between curators. Started at Yorkshire Museum in York, England, they launched the search on social media with a picture of a Roman marble statuette with what appears to be a bite-sized chunk missing from its behind. The tweet has since received hundreds of replies with bottoms from a range of statues, paintings, photographs, animals, skeletons, insects, and vehicles. My favorite is the bee bum entry. I like bee butts, and I cannot lie. That's really bad. Sorry about that. If you want to get to the bottom of this competition and crack the case, no if and or, well, buts. Well, there are buts. But anyway, just follow the hashtag Best Museum Bum on Twitter. And, if you're finding the bums boring or you just want to go down a rabbit hole of cuteness, look up silky chickens. They are real. They are ridiculous. And they are so cute. And I want one. Maybe Owen will get me one. I really want one. They're so cute. Anyway, that's all from me today. I hope you have a fabulous evening. And if you have any good news that you want to share, please send it on over to us so we can share the love. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you so much, Jessica Lancaster. And absolutely, we'll get a silky chicken. Why not? That was wonderful. On the upside with Jessica Lancaster, we look forward to hearing some more very good news from her next week. Now we're going to go to our first guest of the evening. As I said earlier, we had to pre-record this interview just a few days ago with the illustrious David Nathan. He's a British-born biographer, journalist, singer, and quite an authority on soul music. He is also the co-founder of Soul City record label. He's written several biographies of musicians, and he's also penned hundreds of articles and liner notes for some of the greatest musical artists in the world. He's founded the website soulmusic.com, and he has recorded and performed as a jazz and blues singer, both under his own name and as his alter ego, Nefer Davis. And now to our interview, airing for the very first time on Songs and Sit-Downs. This is David Nathan. Well, hello, David. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you today?
Good, good. Thank you so much for joining us all the way over there in London.
Absolutely.
David, I just want to go back to your early days in London. So you grew up as a soul R&B fan.
Yeah, I mean, more correctly, as a teenager, my first musical hero and heroine were actually British. I mean, before I discovered R&B, because we actually didn't call it soul music at that point, would have been the Beatles and one of their proteges, Cilla Black. And yeah, so I was like most teenagers of my day. I like British pop music. Then I started getting into R&B in a kind of a roundabout way, which was through firstly reading the back covers of Beatles albums where they did covers of certain American artist songs, like the Marvelettes, Please Mr. Postman, and Miracles, You Really Got a Hold on Me. And that's how I became aware of those names. I didn't necessarily know the original versions of them. And then the actual kind of turning point would have been when Cilla Black recorded a song called Anyone Who Had a Heart, which had been done weeks earlier, the original by Dionne Warwick. And that was when I discovered the world of R&B, even though most people would not consider Dionne at that time to have been a hardcore R&B artist, but that was my entry point, so to speak.
It was that era of American music coming to England, and then a lot of even Americans discovering it through English bands. They reinvented it and sort of brought it back over here.
That's true. That's true.
And you were one of the people that started one of London's first record stores that were, I think it was even actually not only England's first, but I think outside the US that were specializing in soul and R&B. Is that correct?
That's true. Prior to that, that was something I started with two other people. A gentleman by the name of Dave Godin, who was the founder of the Tamla Motown Appreciation Society, and a friend of his, Robert Blackmore, and the three of us started a record shop in the south part of London called Deptford, and it was we called it Soul City. Soul as in soul music. At that point, the name soul was much more in vogue, so to speak. And yes, it was the first record store that I'm aware of that specialized 100% in American R&B. We did not sell any British pop or anything else. We didn't sell reggae. We didn't sell anything.
Wow, much of the chagrin, I'm sure, of the local British artists.
So a lot of that same passion and feeling impacted the British artists themselves, who would go on to create their own careers in rock and pop. Elton John, another example, a diehard R&B soul fan. I'll tell you a story. So Elton John, not as Elton John, but as Reggie Dwight, used to come into the record shop. He'd come in and ask for recommendations. And I remember vividly, this particularly, he said, well, what was a new import from America? And I played him, such a vivid memory. I played him Nina Simone's version of To Love Somebody. And I remember putting it on and he's like, oh, I better have that. So he actually was one of our best customers. He used to buy literally every week for a certain period of time. Until he became Elton John, he was on the road and blah, blah, blah. But I remember him. I don't remember him as Elton. I remember him as Reggie.
Wow, that is a great story. But you know, you're credited with that being the first one outside the US, which is incredible. Now you're also credited with starting Nina Simone fan club. I think you
Yes.
were just a teenager when you did that.
I was. In fact, the same thing is true when I got in the record shop. So, yeah, I started the Nina Simone Appreciation Society.
Mhm.
So we didn't call it a fan club because there were some artists that didn't quite fit the term fan club. It was kind of, Nina was a different kind of artist. And even then, because of her repertoire, and I don't know, there was just something, it didn't kind of roll off the tongue the same way. So Appreciation Society, yes, I was supposed to start that in March of 1965. I was still in school. I did it partly, I mean, obviously I started to become familiar with her music. And I also did it because I wanted to be, like most teenagers, in with the in crowd. There were other artists from that time period who also had their British fan clubs. There was an Otis Redding fan club. There was James Brown, or Dionne Warwick, and the Shirelles, of course, which was my first fan club I ever joined.
You went on to meet Dionne Warwick and all of these great heroes of yours, and of course Nina Simone, whose biography you penned. I mean, that must have been an incredible experience to be able to go through her whole story.
Well, when I first met Nina as a teenager, and I had no idea that she would become, in essence, who she became. And when I first met her and I first started the fan club, Appreciation Society, she was kind of marginal in terms of her appeal. She had been considered like a jazz stylist and not just jazz. She was kind of unique. She did all these kinds of different kinds of music that weren't easily categorized. So she sometimes do folk songs and sometimes spirituals and sometimes do songs from all kinds of different sources. By the time I first became aware of her, she was just beginning her civil rights advocacy in terms of through music. So she was starting to be a outspoken civil rights musical pioneer, actually, by virtue of songs like Mississippi Goddamn, and there was a song called For Women, and that came a little later. But she was very upfront about her feelings about race in America, or race in the world, actually. She was what we call I would say someone who was very much an advocate for freedom and justice. So that was my first, when I met Nina, she was just beginning that part of her musical journey. And I had no idea, and I guess she didn't either, that her career would span like 5 decades.
Yeah, and what an incredible journey she's had. I mean, I know she started off as a classical pianist, like she was classically trained, and I saw that great documentary that was done on her some years ago, and I think she said she would have maybe been happier if she had just played classical music. And I know she's had so many ups and downs in her life, and I think at one point she was playing small clubs in London. I was either London or Paris, and people weren't turning up to see her because they thought a star as big as Nina Simone couldn't really be playing this club. It couldn't possibly be real, and people didn't actually believe it. So she's had so many ups and downs. And is the book, is there a place that people can order the book, the biography?
Well, your book you're referring to, there's 2 books. The first is a book that I wrote, which is about not just Nina, but several women who I had the opportunity to write about, get to know through my career as a music journalist. And that's called The Soulful Divas. And that there's a chapter on Nina Simone in there. And I think it is out of print now, but I think you still get copies on Amazon. And then the other book was actually written by my sister, and I contributed to it. And that was entirely about Nina. And my sister wrote it because she took over the running of the Appreciation Society when I stopped doing it. So that would have been about 1970, I think. She did it for a few years. And that is, I think, still in print. It's called Break Down and Let It All Out. And that was written in the wake of Nina's passing in 2003.
Speaking of legendary women, of course, you have worked with the great Aretha Franklin, and she must have been a great hero of yours in the early days.
Yeah.
And
I mean, the kind of sequence is kind of interesting, first with Dionne, and then Dionne mentioned Nina Simone in an interview for a British music paper, as Nina Simone was one of her favorite artists. So that kind of led me to more to explore about Nina Simone. And then Nina, the first time I met her in London in June of 1965, when I went to meet her as her fan club president, Appreciation Society founder, she mentioned Aretha actually at the airport. We were just meeting, and she said, asked me whose music I listened to, and she asked me if I'd heard of Aretha Franklin, and I had heard the name, but I don't think I had heard any of her music. So it was like Dion led to Nina, led to Aretha. I became an advocate, you could say, for Aretha Franklin in Britain before she was really well known. And at that point, she wasn't even that well known in America. She was marginal again in America because she hadn't had a breakthrough in terms of commercial success, which came in 1967. So I got to actually speak to her in 1966.
Wow, that early on. And of course, you wrote that great article. I think you interviewed her on her platinum album, Who's Zooming Who? Oh my God. It's so funny because now we're all Zooming, but it had a completely different meaning in those days, right? Could she ever have known?
No.
And that article, I mean, it went everywhere. It was in USA Today, it was in Pulse, wasn't it? With the Tower Records publication, and then it became syndicated. And so you can't do a Google search on Aretha Franklin without coming up with your name and that article. So that must have really raised your profile as a music journalist.
Well, it did. And, I really have to say that of all the people I've worked with, people I had the opportunity to interview, being associated with Aretha provided me with a lot of my firsts in my career. So my first cover story for Blues and Soul, which is the magazine that I wrote for many, many years in British Magazine, that was in August of 1970. My first massive US exposure came through doing the USA Today, story on Aretha there. My first Billboard story I wrote for Billboard magazine for many, many years, starting I think it's 1987, 88. And I did a story on Aretha doing an album at her father's church in Detroit. So Aretha provided me with a lot of firsts in my own career. And so she played a major role in that. Yeah, definitely.
And I believe you actually got to attend that concert at her father's church where she went back and she did a gospel recording.
Correct. That was in 1987, called One Lord, One Faith, One Baptism. And I think back about it now, I think how amazing that I actually got to see her in that setting, which I'd known about from when I first started listening to her music in 1965, and in fact, which prompted me to write a letter to her from England, care of the very same church I was standing in 1987. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up.
Yeah, to come around full circle and to be there. I mean, I've heard some of those recordings, and I can't even imagine just being in the room while she's singing. I mean, even the last, famous performance that we saw of hers at the Kennedy Center when Carole King was being honored. I mean, even seeing that at that point was actually coming close to retirement, and she kind of disappeared for a moment. But you're still involved in her career because I believe you guys, you got the rights to use, you got permission to use that song on a box set for Aretha's career. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's coming out in November of this year, 2020. And it's actually a retrospective of her entire career, the 4 CD box set. And it starts with some recordings she did in 1956 in her father's church. And it goes all the way through her, recordings for Columbia, which is Columbia Records, which when I first heard her, through her big Atlantic hits, and on through her famous Arista period with Who's Zooming Who and Freeway of Love and Sisters Are Doing It for Themselves. And of course, I Knew You Were Waiting for Me, all those hits. So some special performances, and it culminates in her performance, the audio version of her singing A Natural Woman, which, as you said, was at the Kennedy Center. Kennedy honors Carole King was the song co-writer of the song, was being honored. Yeah.
And it's so iconic. I mean, the video, every time I see it, just moves me. Carole King is short of breath as she holds her hand to her chest, and President Obama is wiping a tear away. I mean, this is it was just an incredible. So it's great that actually is going to be on the retrospective, and you're charged with the task of writing the liner notes. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm the co-producer with one of my colleagues at Rhino Records. That Rhino Records is the label that's putting it out.
Mm-hmm.
So my colleague Patrick Milligan and I put it together in terms of what's on there, and then I have an essay, a line notes that I've done for it, and there's another essay from one of the Detroit columnists who wrote for I think the Detroit Free Press, who's written an essay for it also from the perspective of as an African American woman, how Aretha's music impacted her. So it's quite balanced what we have in there, some rarities, and it's just a real joy to be able to be a part of something so momentous. And it's time to come out at around the same time that her official biopic is supposed to come out, which is called Respect, starring Jennifer Hudson.
Oh, is that wow? That is going to be phenomenal. And what a great actress singer to play Aretha.
Yeah.
I mean, there are very few people who could be able to pull that off. And but it must be incredible for you to look back and think as a young man in England being a fan of this great soul singer, and now you're co-producer of her album. It's astonishing. Now, speaking of Rhino Records, part of you have a consultancy agreement with them, and you've started this website called soulmusic.com. So you're in partnership now with Rhino Records.
But we do various things together with the website. Yeah, correct. We have a series of podcasts that we do. I do not every week, but quite frequently, called My Classic Soul, which comes out. It's not through soulmusic.com, but it is associated with it. And as much as the links are on there and the newsletter every week, we focus on that. And then there's also the first project that we're doing, which is soulmusic.com releasing or putting out through soulmusic.com the 50th anniversary edition of Roberta Flack's first album, which is called First Take. And that is an LP with 2 CDs, and one of which is all the demos that Roberta Flack did prior to signing to Atlantic Records. So we work together on different projects, and that's one of them.
And of course, we can get updated and all that on the website.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so we'll check out soulmusic.com for that.
Sure.
Now, also, you wrote other books. You wrote a biography on Lionel Richie?
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was more of an illustrated biography. I mean, yes, it was a biography. It wasn't. I did not speak to him for that, and it was at a time when Lionel Richie's career was starting to really take off as a solo artist, because he had been with the group the Commodores, and so I was approached by Virgin Books, which was at that time part of the Virgin Records empire, so to speak, to do a book on him because of his enormous popularity. He was like really riding the crest of a wave. The book came out in 1985.
Now, you've also, of course, you've written bios, and not books, biographies, but you've also written bios for so many other artists. I mean, Aretha Franklin, of course, Shaka Khan, Usher. You've written, is it liner notes or your bios for Usher, Whitney Houston, Patti LaBelle, Toni Braxton, Prince. I have to ask.
Yeah, that was interesting. I never met him.
Okay, I think Prince was very aloof. It was very hard to meet Prince.
Well,
I know people who've worked with him.
Yeah,
and haven't met him, and it's
So I got hired by the record company. At that point, he had an album that was coming out through an association, or a one-off album he did with Arista Records. It wasn't on Arista, but it was distributed by Arista Records, and they asked me to do the bio, of course, with his consent. But I never actually got to speak to him.
And I just want to talk a little bit about your own writing and your own recording. I believe you collaborated, might have been as far back as the 80s now, but with our very own J.J. Shaw.
That's correct.
Right. And how did all that come about?
How did that all come about? Well, I moved to LA in 1984, and I met JJ, I think probably 85. I met him through someone else. We talked about collaborating. I wanted to get back into writing songs and doing some music. I hadn't done that for a while. I'd been focused on other things. And I was walking on the beach one night, not with JJ, but with a colleague of mine. We were just talking. I looked up in the sky and I said, I wonder who stole the moon. It was the kind of germ for me to write some lyrics. And JJ and I got together in the studio and we recorded. He helped with lyrics because I flushed it out into this really great, I don't know if we used that term back then, quiet storm kind of track. It's actually still one of my absolute favorite recordings. I love the vivid, the imagery of the lyrics. It's kind of evocative. And then a colleague of both of ours, a guy called Brian McNevin, came and added sax on it. And it was very different from anything I'd ever done. It's available now as a digital single. And by virtue of my association with a company called Warner X5 Music, which is based in Sweden. And it's under the name Pharaoh's Dream, which is a name I made up for a group. It's a fictitious group name, featuring David Nathan.
Well, this is great. We'll have to look that up because I know you're an Egyptologist. You have you have a great interest in Egypt. But yeah, I see that with that cross, which, you know, don't get confused for a priest on the street. People will start confessing to you. So, and of course, you released your other recording is Reinvention. That's an album you did back in 2003. Now, your influences are very clear there because you've recorded, among other things, but you have Cry Me a River, and of course Wild as the Wind, which I believe was made very famous. Was it first by Nina Simone?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't first recorded by her, but she was the one who first popularized it. Yes.
And then, of course, your love of the Beatles. You put in Blackbird as beautiful, beautiful version of that. And your voice, you can actually hear the character in your voice that you are inspired by these souls and R&B. So you're not letting down your legacy as, you know, shall I say? Well, we don't say fan club. What do we say?
Appreciation Society.
The Appreciation Society. You're not letting them down with your own recordings. Wow. Well, it's so good. Well, thank you so much, David. Thank you for talking to us today. It's really been a pleasure chatting. And you know, congratulations on all you've done for music. And I know you've had this great career. You're the go-to guy basically on soul music. I looked you up on YouTube, and I see you doing interviews on Aretha and all these other stars. And so we thank you so much for being with us on our little show, Songs and Sit Downs today. We really do appreciate it.
Well, it's been really a pleasure, Tara, and I really thank you for the opportunity for doing this. You know, I love the opportunity to just share with people about, you know, something that's been a passion. It's been my lifelong passion, and it continues to be that. And so thank you for the opportunity to share with you.
Well, that's great. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
David Nathan. So I was looking at the screen thinking, who stole my mic? Because I could see my mic was muted. So rather than be speaking with no voice, I thought I would just look very dumb and stupid into the camera. So I hope you enjoyed that as much as you enjoyed the interview, because I'm sure you enjoyed the interview. What a great and interesting guy, hearing about his career, his connection to such greats as Nina Simone, Aretha Franklin, Elton John, back when he was Reginald Dwight. What a great story. And of course, his co-write with our very own J.J. Schock, who's right there in Van Nuys, working behind the scenes and always doing a great job. Great songwriter, great sound engineer, co-writer with the great David Nathan that we just spoke to. And we heard a little bit of that track as we were talking about it. The sax was coming through very strong there. And you can check out that whole track, Who Stole the Moon, which, as David said, is one of his favorite tracks that he's ever done, co-written with J.J. Schock. You can find that online. It's available on Amazon. It's on YouTube, Spotify, and it's a lovely, laid-back, feel-good tune. So do check that out. You will enjoy it very much. And certainly you're going to enjoy this next part of the show. Because coming up next, we're going to go all the way to Niles, California to meet singer-songwriter extraordinaire Michael McNevin. For more than 25 years, Michael has played on the US songwriter circuit, although he should be in a circus sometimes when I hear his jokes. And he's appeared as a main stager at a number of music festivals. He's also toured parts of Europe, and during his travels, he's had the honor of sharing stages with such greats as Johnny Cash and the Carter Family, Donovan, Sean Colvin, Utah Phillips, Rambling Jack Elliott, and the list goes on and on and on. He's won a Kerrville New Folk Award in Texas and a Performing Songwriter Magazine Award DIY Artist of the Year. He's also won the West Coast Songwriter Award Song of the Year 7 times. Yes, 7 times. He's been featured on multiple TV shows, and on top of all that, he's also a renowned Etch-a-Sketch artist. We're very happy to have him here with us tonight. But before we meet him, here's a clip of one of his music videos. This is Western by Michael McNevin.
The camera pans a desert town and the faces of the thieves. Young boy hides behind his mother, sees his father on his knees. The leader of the bandits breaks off more tobacco. Your life for your money pouch, your food and burrow. Silhouette of a blue-eyed stranger appears alone out of nowhere, lights a cigarillo, then he spits. Bandolero fingers start to twitch. Pulls his poncho to the side, shows the iron of a 45. 6 rounds with the 6 of them. Soon they'll all be mortal men. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Director pointing from his chair. Cue the wagon, the dynamite. Get more gun smoke in the air. Italy and Spain, Eli Wallach was the man, but Sergio Leone was the king. Spaghetti Western in the can.
Please welcome Michael McNevin. Right on cue. You know, you heard yourself get that thunderous applause for whistling in the video, and you're like, I'm going to capitalize on that as much as I can.
Well, you know, every parlor trick you can pull, you know, you do it.
You know, honestly, it took me by surprise. I've never heard you whistle before. That was very cool.
You know, my dad is a really good whistler, and I've been able to whistle all my life. And I didn't. I waited until like this many decades in the music business to whistle in one of my songs.
Oh, wow. You know, I've tried it on occasion. I go, yeah, maybe I could whistle in this bit instead of a harmonica or something, and then I can never pull it off. So, you know, you obviously have it naturally. So, as we said, you're up there in Niles, California, which is a train town, and I would imagine it's got that Western feel maybe that you're depicting in that song we just heard.
Oh, yeah. In fact, they made movies here. So, although, you know, that was all about the spaghetti Westerns, that song is not a spoof, really. In fact, it's even got a little bit of a gun violence statement in it if you listen closely enough. Mm-hmm. Most people just think it's funny, and that's fine.
Well,
but
it's a trademark in a sense because you do heartfelt material, but you've also got this sense of humor.
Yeah, you know,
that I like you sometimes entertain us with. And so you mentioned in Niles, there was movies made. They made Westerns, and they also made a number of Charlie Chaplin movies up there, didn't they?
Well, yeah. So this is a Western. This is where the Transcontinental Railroad came into the Bay Area. Niles is. Mm-hmm. So the first set of railroad tracks to get to the Bay came through this town when it got through the hills, and that was 1869. And then however many years later, 50, I guess. Bronco Billy was the first cowboy star in the movie business. He was the first famous cowboy Western hero. Mm-hmm. He built a studio on the next block over here where I am, the most modern studio in the world, bigger than anything going in Hollywood at the time.
Wow.
And he hired Charlie Chaplin. He was more famous than Charlie. In fact, he had been making movies for 2 or 3 years here, 300 films in 3 years. And then Charlie came here. Charlie did 5 films under the umbrella of Bronco Billy, who paid him $1,250 a week in 1915.
Wow.
It's a lot of money. And Charlie was becoming famous. I mean, that's why Bronco Billy knew that he was hiring an upcoming star. but he filmed The Tramp in Niles Canyon. That was his iconic film that broke him open. And then he went to Hollywood. And the rest is history for those guys. Yeah.
Yeah, there's that great scene in the movie Chaplin about, about Robert Downey Jr. where he plays the role, and he comes out and the guy says, "The guy that I saw plays the best drunk ever. You couldn't be that guy." And then Charlie Chaplin does a thing for a minute, and it's in a town maybe like Niles, California.
Maybe.
I wonder if that's where that scene was set.
I don't know if Robert Downey Jr. did the film here or not, and I don't know that his film gave much credence to Charlie's, career. But
well,
this town played a big part, a big role in Charlie's development.
Yeah, so it's such a historical town.
You got a lot of hobos here,
Now, and now, yeah, you live there, right? so the fame continues. Now, speaking of, I guess, characters, your first ever song, and don't ask me how I know this, but I have contacts. I keep my ear to the ground when I can.
I need
Someone
contacts.
told me that your first song that you ever wrote was about a leprechaun.
Oh my God!
I know. What did I tell you? I warned you.
That's scary. Well, we won't be doing that one.
No, but that was like your first inspiration.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to write a song about a leprechaun with like purple sleeves or something.
Oh my God! You had a recorder.
Somebody's there.
Around. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I knew you when you were 17. Yeah, I was just following you around.
You were so funny. That is true. When I was 17, I wrote my first song, and I didn't write another one until I was in college. But yeah, I wrote a song in the kitchen when my mom was in the kitchen. And I was doodling and wrote down some words about a leprechaun.
And this was your foray into songwriting, and then you went on to do certain gigs, but some of those gigs were not really, shall I say, prime gigs. Like, speaking of prime, didn't you work in a rib joint or something? You were like playing music.
Yeah, my first gigs. Most people starting out have to get into the bars and cafes, and I still I did them for many years, and I started. I probably did bars and cafes for 10 years without playing my own songs in those places. I was writing, but I wasn't playing my songs for people. Right. I was playing American Pie or whatever. Mm-hmm. And my first gig that I scoured the San Ramon Valley for gigs, and nobody would give me a gig. And then I got one. I was dressed up as a pirate, playing to kids eating their hamburgers in a place called Fat Fanny's Restaurant. Right. It was an entertainment kind of. It was like a Chuck E. Cheese without the gross rats. Mm-hmm. And I was walking around with my guitar, and I had a tip jar hanging from my belt, and I was dressed up as a pirate. And I would sing the 20 songs, cover tunes that I knew at the time. And then a month later, after that, I managed to get a gig at the Brass Door, which I think is the one you're talking about. That was a rib house. I played there for 8 months, 3 nights a week, 4 hours a night. And I learned.
So you really did your time.
I went from knowing 20 covers to about 200. Because I had to learn all this old Elvis and Irving Berlin. It was an older crowd. It was a tuck and roll 50s. Martini crowd.
Yeah. Well, then I guess it's a good training ground for you as a musician. And then on the side, you're writing your own songs. So you're keeping all that going. So then when it comes time for you to go out and perform your own songs, you have all this performance experience behind you. I assume that really helped you in your journey.
No doubt. And, also when you learn 200 covers, you learn a little bit about writing. Mm-hmm. And I was heavily influenced by Gordon Lightfoot and Paul Simon, James Taylor, of course. And,
the greats.
Yeah, but I also had some rock and roll, some Zeppelin and some Aerosmith in my set. Mm-hmm. But I also did, Moon River and, stuff like that.
Yeah, and as you said, those Elvis tunes, I mean, some of those are great tunes.
They're timeless. Yeah. And as far as the club itself, I was playing through a deluxe reverb as my PA. A 65 blackface deluxe reverb was my PA system.
Wow.
And I had an acoustic Alvarez that I still have. I did 5 records with that thing. I've kind of retired it, but it was a really good.
When I see you now, you play electric a lot of the time.
Yeah, I do. I have this, but I've always got an acoustic. Mm-hmm. And if I fly to Texas or Chicago or somewhere to do gigs, I will dig up. I will find a loaner acoustic. I just don't fly with an acoustic that I love, and I can fly with this. This is a skinny Dan Electro, and I can put it in an acoustics canvas case on my back, and I can fit underwear, pajamas, shirts in the case. That's it. Oh my God.
Is that you?
You're so good. You guys are good.
Oh.
It's me walking down the alley near my house with my Vox amp in my left arm and another Vox amp in my right arm.
Oh my God! Yeah,
And
so
that's that's the case that I travel with. That I can fit. I can fit a computer, harmonica, strings, underwear, socks, shirts, and this guitar when I fly. So, and I can get it into the overhead. They don't ask me usually because it's on my back and it's not a hard.
That's great.
I don't even
see. Like I said, we've been stalking you since you were 17. You know, we had JJ up there, you know, a couple of months ago taking those shots as you were sneaking off to your gigs. So now, speaking of gigs, there's not a lot of gigs happening these days. You're doing a lot of Facebook Live shows, right?
Yeah, I've done 30. I just did my 30th yesterday.
Well, in the last 3 months, that's amazing.
Yeah, I do.
Wow.
I do twice a week, Wednesdays and Sundays at 6 o'clock, right here in the Mud Puddle shop.
Mm-hmm.
This is permanent furniture. This thing behind me, this little donate, you know, the tip jar stuff, and this guy right here. This is Sancho. This is it's good luck to rub his belly.
Mm-hmm.
But he's the sidekick to Don Quixote, who I found on the side of the road. I should have kept Don Quixote, but I still got him.
Oh, well, that's great. And the
my
Mud Puddle
dad.
shop, you do a lot of shows there. That's a picture of it there, right there.
Yeah,
So-
that's the aerial shot of it. That's 15 feet by 15 feet, and I can get 30 people in here.
Wow.
My record is 35 bodies and a dog.
That's
in that
great.
space.
It looks much bigger than, did you say 15 by 15?
Yeah.
Wow.
You'd be surprised what you can do with the size but you know, I've got them all rows. I got theater seats. They're up against each wall. There's, you know, 6 on wall, 2 in a doorway, 6 on another wall, and then rows, and it adds up. You know, I can do it.
You've had plenty of traveling troubadour do a show there.
There's been about 170 concerts here from singer-songwriters who are friends who I've toured with over the years, who need a place to play in California. And then I've had about 500 jams with the locals, just knuckleheads who come in and play Pink Floyd and, you know, Hank Williams.
Are those knuckleheads watching right now, or are they getting a little miffed by your description of them?
No, they're proud of it. They're mud puddlers. They come in here and have a great time. And you know, we have our moments when we have a listening environment, and we have our moments when we just go nuts and play covers and screw around. There you go. There's a good picture of
yeah, that seems like one of the going nuts moments, but I could be wrong.
No, that is, and whoever's turn it is can kind of lead. We can lay out if it's a songwriter who doesn't want us to destroy their song. We lay out, but you know, there might be somebody who says, "Well, you know, I'd like to hear that saxophone on my break," or they just go, "Jump in, man! It's Neil Young. Let's go!" And then everybody plays.
It's great that you can keep that going, and of course, doing your Facebook shows on live where people have the tip jar and all that, that helps you keep the rent up on the Mud Puddle. So hopefully, when we all go back to doing live shows, you're going to be able to continue on with that.
Thank you for saying that, and that is exactly what I'm doing. I've been getting great support from the locals and also the people that have toured through. So when they watch my shows, they dump a little bit of money in the tip jar, and it's been paying all of my bills.
Yeah, that's so good. And of course, you're from Niles. You grew up in Niles and you live in Niles, but you traveled across the country at one point, and didn't you move to New York City?
I lived in Jersey City, which is different than New York. But yeah, I lived in Jersey City.
Yeah, of course I know that. I mean, I'm foreign, but I'm not that foreign. in that I actually spent time in New York too, and I was living in Jersey because it's a lot cheaper.
Oh, yeah. So I moved there right after that gig in at the Brass Door where I played 8 months. I mean, what a grind that the gig was. But I moved to New York and I played the streets in Manhattan for 6 months. I played at Folk City. I met Dustin Hoffman and Warren Beatty and Julie Christie. They came in to hear songwriters play an open mic, and they came in, and I got to meet Dustin. They were researching their roles in Ishtar's failed songwriters. Woo-hoo. It was 1985.
No,
85.
Is that actually true? They came in to
yeah.
Oh, that is a great story.
Yeah.
So they come in and they say, like, we're playing failed songwriters. Let's
Well,
go see these guys.
They just showed up, and no one really knew why they were there, and they were incognito. And I had to go find the guy on the sidewalk, and I tapped him on the shoulder, and I might have pissed him off because he's like, "Who's tapping me on the shoulder?" And I really wanted to meet him. And he turned to me kind of like this. He kind of gave me a look, you know.
Uh-huh.
And then I said, "Did you enjoy it?" And he looked at me. He goes, "Oh," because I was the last guy that he heard. He had two comics and 3 songwriters in the 5 acts that they heard while they were there. And
Wow.
I told a really bad joke, by the way, that he heard.
It's good. Well, it's your signature. I'm sure that's the only thing he remembers about the night after all these years. Well, you didn't get arrested for it, but you did. You want to tell that story? I've heard you tell
Oh
that
yeah,
story on stage.
I've actually got a song about that. Probably within the same amount of time, I did I did a little bit of when I was doing my busking and all that. I would come in from Jersey City on the subway.
Mm-hmm.
It's called a PATH train. It goes under the Hudson River, and I was going in and out of that all the time to get to Manhattan to make money on the streets. And I jumped a turnstile one day, and I got arrested. They were collecting people that day and then putting them into a paddy wagon. So I spent the night in a Jersey jail for the 80 cents I owe the rail. That's the name of that song. It's called Jersey Jail. I'm not going to sing that for you, but
Well,
yeah.
it's a great story, and I will forgive you because, at this point, I figure we're friends. I'll forgive you for the paddy wagon term. We'll just let that go. You being a fellow Irishman somewhat, and in fact, speaking of your being an Irishman, you wrote a song that was initially supposed to be for a film about an Irish get together, right?
Right.
And I've been told by the powers that be that you might actually play that song for us.
Well, I thought it'd be a good way to start off, and then we'll see who go after that. But you being an Irishman yourself, and me having Irish blood, and also just the symbiotic touring thing, which also happens. This is a movie that was made in Texas. I played Texas all the time. I probably played there 45 times. Wow. And so I mentioned Ireland, Texas in this song. Mm-hmm. There's an Ireland, Texas. So you don't need to get on a plane to go to Ireland when you're in Texas. You just drive to Ireland, Texas.
I did not know that.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah, that is incredible. I did not know that.
Yeah, so this is a song I wrote. The director of the film, the music director of the film, mm-hmm. let me know about it really late in the game. There were songwriters already writing songs for the film. Mm-hmm. And there was a guy in the film, Barry Bostwick from Rocky Horror Picture Show. A few women from Star Trek were in the movie. They filmed it outside of Dallas, and it's a true story. Anyway, I wrote the song driving down up from LA, from getting down hanging out with you guys. Mm-hmm. I don't know, a year or two ago, and it came out a year or two ago. So I wrote the lyrics. I sang it into the phone. I sent it to him. He said, "All right, we'll try to get it in." It didn't get into the film. I should let everybody know that it didn't. It's not in it. But I ended up with a song that I like quite often.
Right, and it's also an award-winning song. I won't give too much away, but you actually won an award with this song.
Yeah,
and
it won Song of the Year.
Yes, Song of the Year. Well, you know what? It doesn't matter that it didn't get into the film.
That's
it's
right.
Their loss.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yes. Well, Michael, why don't I give it to you now for if you want to do a few songs, we'd love to hear you sing a few songs, and then maybe we'll come back and have a little chat.
I think we're running out of time, but I was going to do 3. Is it still okay to do 3, or have we talked too much?
Absolutely, fantastic.
Good? Okay, all right.
Yes, please. Michael
all right.
McNevin.
Thank you, brother. All right. This is called Cradle to Grave. What'll it be for you, Jamesons, Bushmills, or gin? It's good to sit down at your table again. These dog days ain't over, man, it's harder than sin. We're thicker than water, but our blood's running thin. We're thicker than water, but our blood's running thin. It's a long way to wander from cradle to grave. All the years in between to raise hell or behave. All the years in between to raise hell or behave.
I don't know you well, but I don't hate you none. Ain't it funny how things come around when we're done? If there's a score to be settled, it ain't at a bar. The friends that I have are too few and too far. The friends that I have are too few and too far. It's a long way to wander from cradle to grave. All the years in between to raise hell or behave. All the years in between to raise hell or behave. Sometimes I'm lost, sometimes I'm last. Sometimes I drive just to burn up the gas. Dallas to Waco, to Kerrville and back. And if I can make Ireland, I'd surely do that. If I can make Ireland, I'd surely do that. It's a long way to wander from cradle to grave. All the years in between to raise hell or behave. All the years in between to raise hell or behave. As God is my witness, I ain't the worst. Counting my blessings, kissing the dirt. What'll it be for you, Jamesons, Bushmills or gin? It's good to sit down at your table again. It's good to sit down at your table again. It's good to sit down at your table again.
That's a sound effects thing that I do during my shows. And I usually do this too if you want to see the money-making machine. It's right here. There you go. What you do is you screenshot that and you tape it to the refrigerator, and then also you make a postcard out of it, and you send it to your relatives like a postcard. They may not know who I am, but they'll think that you're raising money for a cause. All right, that was Cradle to Grave, and this is a song that I'd like to dedicate to Dolly. She likes this song, and she asked for it, and I'm quite fond of it too. Wrote the song in Michigan a couple of years ago. I teach at a songwriters retreat up there called Lamb's Retreat. And I also just go to the retreat because I love to ride up there. But there's a kid that I grew up with here in Niles, where I live, California. His name is Mike. Also, Mike Santos, his older brothers and my older brothers, we all hung out as a little boy pack here in the neighborhood. And a little slice of life from the Santos house when I was hanging out there as we were becoming teenagers in the 70s in the neighborhood. And everybody lands on their feet here. So just a bit of a slice of life.
Young Santos started smoking at the tender age of 12. Menthol's on the swing set, 3 o'clock to the dinner bell. Latchkey brothers ran the roost, raid the fridge and raise some hell. The Santos house was open season when Daddy drove the Peterbilt. Leroy took the long hauls. A week or two he got good pay. Kept the kids in bikes and shoes. They missed him when he drove away. And Judy picked her battles. She lost them all the same. The boys are more like Leroy, getting bigger every day. She called Leroy on the CB. Come back, Leroy, are you there? We sure miss you, sweetie. Kids say hi. Kids say hi. The oldest had a dime bag trade and $1 million smile. The middle one had a temper fit for any middle child. They both tenderized young Santos in the hallway to see if he would cry. Eventually he didn't, so eventually they didn't try. Mornings on the kitchen phone, her best friend made her laugh. She lost her in the canyon, never quite got over that. She called Leroy on the CB. Come back, Leroy, are you there? We sure miss you, sweetie. Kids say hi. Kids say hi. Kids say hi. Divorces were a fad that year. All the parents got one. Motors, weights, and vinyl. Distractions for the Santos sons. And she kept to her bedroom with her Boone's Farm soaps and sweaters. Judy's job got easy when she gave up altogether. At OWEN by the wayside, the Friday nights and double dates, and Leroy kept her guessing somewhere on the interstate. She called Leroy on the CB. Come back, Leroy, are you there? We sure miss you, sweetie. Kids say hi. Kids say hi. Kids say hi. Young Santos started smoking at the tender age of 12. He's the one behind the barbecue, living up in Reno now. Leroy landed in Manteca. He's got an acre for his truck. I hear Judy's working down at Casper's. I hear she changed her luck. I hear she changed her luck. I hear she changed her luck.
All right. So it's called Young Santos. Get that on my Bandcamp site. I think I've recorded it. There's some new ones. This one's not recorded yet. I wrote this in Michigan also, just last fall. And it's called Vaudeville on Ice. I think I'm going to get to talk to them again, but if not, thank you so much, OWEN, and thank you so much, Dolly and JJ, for doing this show. I love it. Thanks for having me on as a guest. And many more to come. keep the online festival going. Sometimes we're the punchline to a joke of our own doing. Pratfall at the curtain call, clowns going down from rags to ruin. Coulda rode off into a sunset, instead we clash into a drum set. Shake it off, make 'em laugh till you cry. It's a comedy. It's vaudeville, gotta tighten up my act. Oleo's over, headed for the bar and back. I'm bombing here, time to take a bow. Get out of town any way I know how. Tomatoes don't hurt, but the stains stick around. It's a comedy. It ain't a lot of mercy, but it ain't no coup de grace. It's either a hook or a ha-ha-ha. 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 Uh-huh. In a tramping we will go, whistle to me hobo, got a little water dough, Detroit or bus, hitchhike in the winter, cheaper than airfare, save it for the cookware and camping stuff to get me by, fill a hole in a lake and try to catch a walleye, and now the polar bears are laughing at me too. It's a comedy, vaudeville on ice, vaudeville on ice. Ice fishing in Michigan, living on the glass. I got a winter shanty now, cold brewed hot brats. I'm gonna be a good citizen and haul away my trash. Warm cut gas heat, do some barking on the street, get you free tickets to a front row seat for my comedy. Vaudeville on ice, vaudeville on ice. Coke bottle cheaters reading Melville at night. 3 months of winter in the vaudeville lights. Who owns a lake? Is the warden on the take? Just a bunch of frozen water, can't you leave a clown alone? Hey, Mackie used to be a squatter, but now I call it home. From a comedy. It ain't a lot of mercy, but it ain't a coup de grace. It's either a hook or a ha-ha-ha. 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 Uh-huh. Abbott was a straight man, Costello got the laughs.
Maybe I could find a partner and get another bowler hat.
And yes, of course, Michael, you're coming back to us. We're not going to let you away that easily, my friend. Beautiful songs, as always. Now, Vaudeville on Ice, I like this. It's either a hook or a ha. So I think this is basically my cue to invite you to tell one of your famous jokes. And you can choose the jokes.
Okay.
You can choose whichever joke, but this is a moment that we've been looking forward to.
Okay. I demolished this one the other day, so I'd like some redemption on it. Oh my God.
Oh, look at this. We even have a graphic. McNevin's Comedy Corner.
Too much pressure now. I hope they know.
It's become a segment.
I hope they know that this is what I'm going to get. All right. So Timmy, Tommy, and Mel are cruising around the graveyard at night. You know, they're cruising around the neighborhood. They come up on the graveyard. And they go in there, you know, the cemetery is full of gravestones. And it's kind of spooky in there. And they come up on the mortuary building. And Tommy says, "Hey, Mel, have you got your knife on you?" "Yeah." "Let's pick the lock and get in there." "Okay." So Mel picks the lock, and they get inside the mortuary building. It's dark and spooky in there. And they see 2 caskets, empty ones, laying on the floor, with the lids next to them. They're like, "Man, that's sick." And then they hear.
That's my doorbell.
Okay, great.
Live.
You know what? That was perfect cue because that's when the.
I'm so sorry.
No, that. You gonna answer it?
Oh man, they just delivered a package. It was like FedEx.
No. Listen, can I continue the joke?
And they delivered a package, and he
continue
just
the
rang
joke.
the doorbell. He shouldn't have.
Okay, but that's what happened. Is that the door opened? They heard a doorbell and a creak at the door, and it was the guy. It was the main guy going around doing the rounds, the night watchman checking on everything.
Yeah.
And they weren't supposed to be in there. They broke in, and they didn't know what to do. So Timmy and Tommy got into the caskets and closed the lids, but there was nowhere for Mel to hide. Drop the mic.
You know, you did not let us down, Michael, with that joke. There was nowhere for Mel to hide. You know, and you write all your own material, right?
Yeah, I made that up.
Now, I should say that I've heard you say before at your live shows that people are allowed to tell your jokes, but they have to send you $1 if they do.
True, yes.
So anyone out there who wants to tell that joke, you got to sell Michael $1.
Yeah, I want royalties.
Yes, absolutely. Now, you mentioned songwriting camp, and I know you're involved in a Pacific songwriting camp, among others. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I go to them, but I really didn't start going to them at all. I didn't really, I wasn't familiar with them. I'd been touring all my life, and then my friend Tom Prasada Rao invited me down. He was teaching at Summer Songs. Penny Nichols was running it. She passed away a few years ago, and there's a picture, and we renamed it. We had to rename it because there's a Summer Songs East on the East Coast, and they needed to keep that name once she went on. But we are continuing it at the same place, in the same spirit, with the same guidelines as Penny taught all of us to run this camp.
Wow,
so
that's great.
Me and my friend Caroline Testard took over the admin of it, and we bring a lot of the same teachers back. We bring new teachers back. About 70 of us hang out in Cambria, California, and that's where I've made so many friends from Los Angeles. I didn't like to play in LA before GPS. It stressed me out, but now I go down there a lot because of all the friendships, you know, and you guys and Dolly and JJ. A lot of this is connective tissue from this camp in Cambria on the Central Coast. So it's usually in January. I don't know if we're going to have it this year. Maybe we'll do an online one, but we're looking forward to getting back together. We've run it 3 times, and if you go to PacificSongwritingCamp.org, I believe it is, you can kind of visit us and come and write songs. We write songs for 3-4 days. The food's included, and we have great staff of teachers, and we all write together. And any level, it doesn't really matter. And you can be a seasoned pro or a total beginner. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I've heard wonderful things about it. I would love to go one year, and I can't let you go without asking you a little bit about your Etch-a-Sketch. So this is another art form that you have. Do you have an example you might be able to show us?
I do. I've got prints. I've actually got the real ones here, but they're kind of hard to see because of the screens. And so let me. I got
so you
two
make
of
the
my
Etch-a-Sketch, and
prints.
then you take a photo of it.
Right. Yeah.
That's great.
So this is. Here, do this one first. This is a song I have called "The Pride of Niles Centerville." Let me know when it gets close enough to the camera.
Oh, that looks pretty good. Yes, I see. Yeah.
So this is "The Pride of Niles Centerville." It's a Little League song that I have that went into the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. And this the real drawing, not the print, but the real drawing that is on the toy, I still have it. And it's 20 years old, but it hung in the Hall of Fame for a year as folk art, for baseball folk art.
Wow.
And the song went into the Hall of Fame. And I just do it as a hobby, you know. This one here is a T-shirt from a club that I played in Texas for many years. It just stopped operating, but maybe they'll revive it. You see that?
Yeah.
Uncle Calvin's Coffee House.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I see the guitar and the whole
That's up
thing.
in Dallas. That's up in Dallas, Texas.
And can we see some of these on your website?
Yeah, you know what? Not on my website. I don't think I have. I need to load them up on my website. Oh, there's Bagger. I have a song called Bagger. These go with my songs. You know, most of them.
Wow, that's amazing.
Most of them.
It's excellent. Well, Michael, speaking of songs, you know, we've gone over time, but it has just been the right thing to do tonight. And we will go a little more over time if you will indulge us with just one more song before we go.
I'd love to. I'd love to.
And then I'll say goodnight to you now, and then you'll bring us out with a song, and then we have a little more to go after you finish. But there's all of Michael's info, PayPal, Mudpuddle /Venmo, Michael Nevin, Bandcamp, Bandcamp, and all this stuff is up there, and you'll find a lot of Michael's stuff online. And as he said, take a photo of that, blow it up, put it on your fridge, and just keep putting money into it.
We're staying open until we can have people stuff back in here like sardines.
Yes, of course. And of course, don't forget, for this show, DivineRebelMusic.com. I'm sorry, PayPal /DivineRebelMusic, Venmo.com /DivineRebelMusic, and all of the proceeds are shared with our musical artist. And what a fine musical artist we have tonight. Thank you so much, Michael McNevin. We look forward to hearing your song, and we'll see you again soon.
I love you, Owen. I love you, Dolly and JJ. Thank you, guys. I can't wait to see you in person and hug you. Even if it's through plastic.
You too, brother.
All right, man. All right, this is called Still Red. I wrote this about an old rodeo rider and a cattle guy from Modesto. And he's done chasing cattle, and he's done fixing fences, and it's time to turn the barn into a man cave. Easy chair up in the hayloft, Coca-Cola fridge in the shed. Something ain't right, the radio's dead. Nothing grazing in the field, I got a cage to rattle. All hat, no cattle, but the barn's still red. All hat, no cattle, but the barn's still red. Put a bet on the swayback mule, spend a day at the track. It'll even out at the poker game or shooting pool. Bad luck comes back like a boomerang.
Hey, let's all ride a mechanical bull. Yeah, let's all ride a mechanical bull. The big oak ain't what it used to be. One good storm and it's smithereens. Take an axe to it limb by limb. New pile of firewood, winter coming on. Trees long gone, but the stove's still red. Yeah, the tree's long gone, but the fire's still red. Looking at the long haul. Looking at the long haul. Back 40 in the corner underneath the cross. Someday I'll be out there too. There lies a buckaroo. Barn doors open, the horse got out long time ago. Geese flew south. Big Dipper don't care what the compass don't know, or what a broken clock says. Burning daylight. Sun's long gone, but the sky's still red. Trees long gone, but the stove's still red. All hat, no cattle, but the barn's still red. All hat, no cattle, but the barn's still red.
Thank you so much, Michael McNevin. Always great, always entertaining, a true singer-songwriter, a fine jokester, and a great guy. Check out Michael's Facebook page at facebook.com/McNevin, facebook.com/McNevin, and his website, michaelmcnevin.com, for all his upcoming shows. You want to see this guy as much as possible, and thankfully there are many opportunities to see him live in live shows. And of course, don't forget the tip jar, paypal.com/DivineRebelMusic and venmo.com/DivineRebelMusic. Tips are shared with the musical artists and also with everybody who works so hard to put on this show. So as I always say every week, we really appreciate your being here. Is the most important thing. And if you feel like throwing something in the tip jar, of course we appreciate that. Thank you so much. Now, what a great show we've had, but we have more great shows coming up. The upcoming shows on Monday, July 6th, that'll be next week at 7 p.m. We're back with another episode of Songs and Sit-Downs featuring Josefina Lopez. Now, Josefina Lopez is the writer of that great film, Real Women Have Curves, with America Ferrero, and she's done plays, she's written a novel. She's a very, very interesting person. So that's going to be a great live interview that we'll be doing with her next week at 7 p.m. And then our musical guest is going to be Paul Zollo. Paul will be our first returning musical guest since we started doing the show. The interview that I did with Paul, it was at least a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, was so popular and so filled with great information that we have to have him back. In fact, there was demand for him. More Zollo was basically the comments we were getting. I'm not kidding. He's interviewed Bob Dylan, Paul Simon, Leonard Cohen, just to name a few, and he's a singer-songwriter in his own right, and such a fantastic conversationalist. So do come back next week, and you will certainly enjoy those two wonderful guests. And then Monday, July 12th, we're back with the second Sunday Songwriter Series. Now, we're also having the virtual open mic on that. So this means that you can submit a video. You can just create a video or have a video, an already existing video of you singing a song, and submit it. It can be original or it can be a cover. Some people have submitted covers. And in order to do that, just submit your video to the open mic on divinerebelmusic.com. So go to divinerebelmusic.com/Second Sunday Songwriter Series, and you'll see all the details, all the information that you need to submit a video. And we've absolutely loved hearing from you, and I've always enjoyed presenting the videos. So kindly go ahead and do that, and then we'll be interviewing the featured artists, and the featured artists are yet to be announced, and they're going to perform for us live on the show. So that's Monday, July 12th. Then coming up, I'm sorry, that cannot be Monday, July 12th, although that's what it says on mine. Can it be 7 p.m. Second Sunday Songwriters Virtual Open Mic? Okay, there's a mistake there somewhere. So July 12th, I should look that up on my calendar. Okay, so so it's got to be a Sunday if it's the Second Sunday Songwriter Series. And then the Monday is Songs and Sit Downs. So we have just a little misprint there, but you guys know. And I believe that starts at 5 p.m. Keep in touch with us for that one. All the details on divinerebelmusic.com. Then Monday, July 13th, which will actually be the next day, Songs and Sit Downs featuring Gwendolyn Oliver, a very interesting lady who was very high up in corporate America, working very hard, and then had a dream to become an actress. And she has an incredible story which involves a brain tumor and ending up in a movie with Dennis Hopper and among many other things. So do tune in for that interview. And then we have a wonderful duo called Onsong Lily. Really fantastic musicians. And so that's also going to be a great show. Now we're going to move on, and we're going to finish pretty soon with the video of the week. We always like to play a video of the week of a songwriter. And this one is going to be Greg in Good Company, and the song is called Home. Now, Greg was a guest on our show a couple of weeks ago, and this particular video was recorded during a performance arranged by Flight of Voices, which is a great organization that put musicians together, and they have these great shows going on. And what we're going to see in a moment, but before I do that, I know you're going to really like it, but before we play the video, I just want to thank everybody involved in putting on this show, everyone who took part. Thank you to Dolly and JJ, Jessica, and of course, our special guests, David Nathan and Michael McNevin, and all of you, your audience, really the most important element, because without you, we would not be doing this, and we really very much appreciate your tuning in and being with us tonight. And we look forward to seeing you, of course, again soon in those upcoming shows that I mentioned earlier. And until then, please stay safe and be kind. Thank you so much. This is Greg Gilman.
All right. First post-apocalypse Flight of Voices video. Let's do this. The song's called Home. The soles at his feet are all black from the road. The callus is building since 18 years old. Oh, he knows that he's got one, but he won't go home. The voices he's hiding are still in control. She sits at the window, daydreams of his soul. Is he alive or dead in some hole? Well, she knows that she loves him, but he's out of control. He's on his own journey, may God bring him home. He sneaks on the bus and he hustles for food. The strangers who held by the kindness he knew. When the voices start screaming, he just drinks more booze. He knows he ain't crazy, just differently tuned. She sits at the table, cooks his favorite dish, blows out his candle and makes her own wish. Oh Lord, if you hear me, please let me know. Is my boy odor of your home?